About a month and a half ago, I stood, clad in American flag spandex, on the beach in Copacabana. Unfortunately, I was completely nauseous. This was possibly because I also happened to be standing on the start line of the road race at the Olympic Games this summer. So I was a little bit nervous. Now, before you guys get any wrong ideas, I never started cycling because I love the feeling of the wind in my hair or the freedom of the open road. I became a cyclist because I love competition, elite competition. And this was my avenue to being the best in the world. I had also decided that this road race in Rio would be the poetic finale to my career. So therefore, also my last chance to embody that greatness. Well, they said that the course that day had a little something for everyone. Now, what that actually means is that it had some aspect that was going to be genuinely terrifying to each and every one of us. It began with cobblestones. Now, routing a race across cobblestones is one of the hallowed traditions of cycling. It is not one of my favorites. As a rather small rider, hitting a cobble at speed is pretty similar to being the little kid on the wrong end of the seesaw. And then you're going to add into that extra crashes and flat tires and everything bouncing off at angles you don't expect. Furthermore, that particular day, the current world champion had spent the last week telling the media about how she planned to use the cobbles as a place to get rid of me, personally, as a threat before the race had even started. Now, to be fair, on her part, that wasn't an entirely stupid strategy, because the second major challenge of the course was a big climb that came perilously close to the finish. Now, I got selected for the Olympic team based on my ability as a climber. And my rivals have learned that the best way to deal with me on a climb is to get rid of me before the climb. So we came to the cobbles, and I kept my focus and made sure I was to the front of the group. And I kept my hands light on the bars and tried to keep my pedal strokes steady. And after 2 laps of that section, nothing bad had happened. That is, apart from the bee that flew into my helmet and stung me on the head. Well, now I faced even greater challenge: patience. Because for the next hour, my job was to stay out of trouble and not use any extra energy. So I ate and I drank like I was supposed to, and I talked to my teammates, and I tried to stay out of the wind. And as we got closer and closer to that finishing climb, I started to feel a little shaky. And at first I attributed that to, maybe too much sugar from all of the energy gels. But then I realized it was much more likely that it was just the nerves of potential. Because see, this was the moment that everyone had been telling me about for months. If I could make it to the base of the climb with all of my major rivals, something extraordinary might just happen. So I went hard from the bottom of the climb, just like I was supposed to. And now I had to call in another lesson, and that's faith. Faith that if I kept going at this pace, just like I had so many times before, one by one, my rivals would fade away. Now that's not a very easy thing to believe when a glance under your shoulder reveals the faces of people that you are sure are not suffering at all, in spite of your very best efforts. But I had learned this lesson before. Commit, believe, and keep going. And so when we got to the top of the climb, it was just myself and one Dutch rider, Annemiek van Vleuten, who remained. There were about 15 kilometers that remained to the finish line, and about half of them downhill. So for perspective, that's going to be 20 or 25 minutes out of a race that took just under 4 hours. There was a big gap to the next group of riders behind us. I was exactly where I needed to be to win an Olympic medal. So we started the descent. Annemiek immediately proved herself, not for the first time, to be a more daring descender than I was. And so she shot away around the corner as the light rain started to fall, making the roads a little bit slick. But still, that left me in second place until I came around one of the final bends and I saw an orange shape crumpled to the side of the road. Annemiek had crashed in one of the final corners, which meant now somehow, as things go in cycling, I was back in the lead of the Olympics road race, with now less than 10 kilometers to go to the finish line. Now, another thing you learn about in bike racing is physics. So, when you're in the draft of another rider, that is, behind them so that they block the wind for you, you're using about 30% of the energy that you would be using if you were riding by yourself. So, when you see all the riders in the Tour de France moving around in that blob, well, it's called a peloton. And they're not doing it because they're gossiping. And they're not doing it because they want to play Russian roulette with the bike handling skills of the guy next to them. Although both of those things do happen. But they're doing it to save energy. So the question is, why on earth would a rider ever want to be where I found myself, off the front solo? Well, in my case, although I'm known for my climbing ability, my sprinting capabilities are a little bit less lauded. So if I came to the finish line in any sort of a group, I wasn't winning anything. Being in the front was a gamble, absolutely, but it was also my best chance at victory. 8 kilometers to go. And you can see the gap to the next riders behind me, 39 seconds. It had developed that there was a group of 3 riders behind me, working together, taking turns in the wind. Their advantage was this teamwork. My advantage? A 39-second head start. 5 kilometers to go. I had arrived to this point of the race with absolutely no excuses. And this was going to be a tight finish, but I had no ego-sparing notions of, oh, I'd be in a better place if I had just eaten a little more, or if I had only slept better the night before. As is pretty rare in cycling, I was actually riding. I had spent those 4 hours at the absolute height of my potential. 4 kilometers to go. Three. Have you ever worried that you aren't enough? Not smart enough? Not wealthy enough? Maybe not strong enough? Or not fast enough? Me? All the time. 2 kilometers to go. Unfortunately, in this particular case, at the same time, millions of viewers across the world were wondering the same thing of me. It was a fine time for them to take an interest in women's cycling. 1 kilometer to go. And then, with 300 meters to go, this happened. I finished 4th. And so, I looked like this. They don't give out medals for 4th place, you know. Now, since I've been back, a lot of people want to tell me how spectacular it is that I got to go to the Olympics. And they want to congratulate me on such a brave race and, such a gutsy finish. But here's the thing about enoughness. No one else gets to decide what is or is not enough for you. I had spent 10 years, basically my entire adult life, learning to become the best in the world. So 4th place, and after that sort of a finish, not enough. Now, cycling is an easy one because it's easy to quantify, but it certainly isn't the only place in our lives that we take risks. What about asking your boss for a promotion or putting all of your money into an unproven startup venture? What about proposing to the person that you love? These are all one-way doors, and they are terrifying to us precisely because if we choose to step across that threshold, we are undertaking the risk that we might have to face actual failure. And so the question is, would you rather have an excuse, a sort of talisman that you can massage forever, and I could have won, but, or would you rather know that you had given absolutely everything of yourself to a task, but have that everything be not enough? It isn't an easy question, really, because when we are willing to face the specter of the things that we cannot be, we are never going to be able to grasp the things that we can. In Rio, I was forced to face the fact that on that day, I wasn't enough. At the same time, I gave myself the opportunity to truly experience the potential that I had been building quietly, second upon minute upon hour, for really my entire life. So this race ended, like many things do, exactly in the place it began, on the beach in Copacabana. I sat on a curb with my coach, Dean, our backs towards the ocean, watching the lights blink on as darkness began to fall. He told me he was proud of me, even though that didn't really mean anything at the time. Dean's been there with me since the beginning, my ally through every victory and failure. So perhaps he alone could understand the sorrow that was beginning to settle in, bittersweet, as my emotions settled back down to earth. I had taken a risk. I had to. There was nothing left but to face this. It is an earned privilege, this sort of a broken heart. Thank you.